The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, my favorites and yours, Dr. Mark Bound and Dr. Scott Gershwer. And today we are going to discuss the ongoing land incursion, land invasion, the Israeli state into the Gaza Strip, Palestine.
Gaza City, actually.
Gaza City.
Gaza City.
Thank you for the
Downtown.
correction.
Well, there's a lot of angles that we can go with here. I just want to go with one to start with. We'll get to Israel in a second, but we are sitting in the United States of America. Just like we all remember that Trump said that he would stop this war, right? Obviously, that's a fail, as it has been with Ukraine. Is there anybody out there who's listening to Trump? Is there another world leader that he has any kind of juice with at all? I mean, it seems that he can tell Netanyahu to do something, and Netanyahu will say, "You got it, buddy," and turn around and do the exact opposite. It's just like, like feckless comes to mind, appeaser comes to mind, more in context with Russia and Ukraine than with Israel. But, we're really, our leadership is just being dismissed, disrespected, ignored. There's no way that the United States of America can dictate to Israel what they need to do. And that's just not true anymore.
Yeah, you're right, and we've mentioned it so many times. Our standing in the international community has been so degraded, simply because, and it's really not simply because there's a lot of different reasons for it. Number one, the idea, the taco thing with Trump. They have to know that you're good to your word, and you're going to stick to it, even if it's something that they don't like. That the international community and the world wants some consistency, be it good or whether it be it bad. I want to be able to look at a country and say, yeah, I can rely on them, or no, I cannot rely on them. And unless you can do that, that's why North Korea has such little influence in the rest of the world. First of all, because they're a hermit kingdom, pretty much, and they don't engage. And when they do engage, we're really not sure what the hell they're talking about. Most of the times, we have no idea what they're talking about. So that has degraded our standing, because even our allies have to be sitting back there scratching their head saying, what the heck is next? And I'll agree with Scott we have no influence over Bibi Netanyahu. Bibi Netanyahu is trying to save his own skin at this point in time. And understandably, and I can't see where he sees Trump being of any value to him. With all the things that are going around Trump, I do not see him looking at Trump or this administration and saying, yeah, that I can use, there could be a value in this group of people. Because again, even the people of Israel know what he says and what he means and what he does maybe completely different things. So there's no credibility there, and I think that's one of the things where we've got the credibility, a problem now, and not only with the people that we're against, but with the people that are our allies. And when we're talking about going into Gaza City, Netanyahu's attitude is screw it, the rest of the world is against us anyway. What keeps me from doing just what I want? It's not like the European Union is going to bomb Israel in retaliation for going into Gaza City. We're going to complain. They're going to complain. They're going to yell about it. They're going to cry about it. They're going to do this, that, and the other about it. But that's the extent of it. And as long as Netanyahu, and we were talking on the previous podcast about, bombing, attacking ships or boats in the ocean. If the Trump administration had the information and they were transparent about it, there would be some support for them maybe. And there's that, now you've got that credibility going for you. And it's the same kind of idea when we're talking about Netanyahu. Netanyahu's attitude is that, hey, I am now trying to protect Israel, and this is how I do it.
Netanyahu's coming back to Washington later this week or next week or something like this for another visit, as I understand it. I don't know how many times this is going to be, but he is coming back.
Yeah. Like it just seems to me that if Trump said to Netanyahu, you know what, the United States has hostages there, and you got to get them home for me. You want to get your own hostages home. I understand that also. Every night out there in Israel, people protest and say, bring the hostages home. It's got to be weighing on him. And yet it seems to me that every time Netanyahu is close to like seriously making a deal with them to get some hostages home, and he goes and he talks to Trump, he just changes his mind. So it's almost worth wondering whether Trump is saying something to him that fills him with some kind of resolve to keep the war going, to escalate the war rather than to bring hostages home and end it or have a ceasefire. It's like how you negotiate in bizarro land, because it seems to me that while Trump should be mediating this to the extent that we have any kind of credibility to do it, and after the attack in Doha, I don't think we have much, but it seems that the exact opposite is happening, and that every time Trump opens his mouth, Netanyahu makes it worse, not better.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know what those conversations are. It's kind of like the conversation he had with Putin, right, when he was in Alaska. It'd be so interesting to know what the hell those conversations were, because the impact of those conversations affects everybody. And, we are pretty much in the dark about what happens in these little meetings. And you're right, Scott. Every time Netanyahu talks to Trump, it just seems any progress that we might have been making seems to go out the window. And so you got to ask yourself, we don't feel, and I think we've made this very clear, we don't feel that Trump has a lot of influence over Netanyahu anymore. We don't think Trump has a lot of influence over anybody on the world stage anymore, not like people might think he does. So what is being said to Netanyahu, I honestly don't think that he's being influenced by Trump, but something.
Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe Netanyahu knows something about Trump that he keeps reminding Trump about.
The whole world knows, except for us.
To know something about Trump that he reminds Trump about. I mean, now apparently Trump is again really losing patience this time, or really annoyed this time, or whatever it is. And I thought, that was months ago, back in April, when Trump was really losing patience this time. So it's the same thing. So it may not be that what Trump is saying to Netanyahu, but what Netanyahu is saying to Trump.
You know what? Brooklyn, that's a very good point. And again, not knowing what the conversations are.
Exactly.
It just makes it impossible for us to actually come up with a logical, and of course, probably when you're talking about Trump and Netanyahu, your logic is probably being thrown out the window anyway. So, maybe we just don't have to think in those terms regardless. But I do know that the rest of the world is condemning Israel for this. They're thinking about, more sanctions on Israel. And the EU Foreign Policy Chief, Kaja Kallas, said today, and this is a direct quote, "The aim is not to punish Israel. The aim is to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza." That to me is a rather lukewarm response to this. You want to, and there's a couple of schools of thought to this. If you want to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza, get rid of Hamas. Or if you don't like what Israel's doing, come up with a better option. Give us another option. And nobody seems to be able to come up with the option that would work or would be effective when you're dealing with a group like Hamas. Nobody seems to be able to come up with with that solution. But we're really good at being, the Monday morning armchair quarterback saying, oh, well, they should be doing something different. They probably shouldn't have thrown that pass. Okay, well, what was your option? What would have been your play call? And I think that, at this point in time, since nobody's giving a legitimate play call, and I'm pretty sure that Trump isn't giving a legitimate play call to the Israelis. Basically, Netanyahu has this idea that, hey, I've got a free hand. I can do what I want to do. People are going to bitch, piss, moan about it. Yes, you're going to sanction us, but I'm doing it under the auspice of protecting the people, and the people will support me as long as they believe that's exactly what's happening.
So today is Wednesday, September 17th.
Yes.
The next time we get together,
yes,
will be the day after Trump speaks at the UN on Tuesday, September 23rd.
Oh, that'll give us an interesting content.
Yeah. And here's what I think we might hear. We might hear, first of all, we're definitely going to hear this. Trump, because they put out an executive order just recently that says this exactly. The president has ended more wars in 8 months than the UN has in 80 years. He can't name them, but he does talk. The number sometimes is 6, sometimes 7, sometimes 8, and sometimes 10. But he's ended a lot of wars, and the UN hasn't.
So is he including the war on Christmas, the war on the Easter Bunny, the war? Is he including those? Are those some of these wars, Scott?
Yes, inside the war on left on right wingers by the left. Anyway, like what if he actually got up there and he said, "Look, the world is not the same place it used to be. It used to be that, we had liberty versus tyranny, that we had totalitarianism versus democracy. Now all we have is business. All we have is trade. All we have is strong countries that are going to do what they want to do, and weaker countries bearing it as best they can. And that is the reality of where we are right now. And Russia has a free hand to go after Ukraine and other satellites that used to be part of the Soviet Union or their sphere of influence. The United States is going to do what we want to do in Venezuela and in the Western Hemisphere. When it comes to Canada, Panama, Greenland, this is the way of the world. China is going to do what it wants to do with Taiwan and with other countries in the Pacific region that China is the dominant player in. And that's just the way it is. And people need to stop fighting that and just accept that this is what's going to happen. And these 3 great nations are going to have an understanding that each of us in our sphere can do whatever we want to do, and there will be world peace. And it's Trump saying to Netanyahu, I really do think that Gaza could be Atlantic City on the Mediterranean, and you need to make that happen. And every time Netanyahu goes to the White House or has a phone call with Trump thinking, man, he's going to put me over his knee and spank me for all the crap that I'm doing that is completely against U.S.-Israeli policies for decades, he walks away going, man, did he just tell me to bomb more and to kill more people and to starve the population so that they will be ready to leave so that we can turn the Gaza Strip into Atlantic City on the Med? That's the kind of thing that it will be shocking. It'll be shocking, but it won't be unexpected.
Well, that would be an interesting thing to hear. Probably, probably, but what some of us believe it's more toward the reality. It's speaking to the reality of what we're moving toward. And that's, although I don't think Trump will say that. I don't, because that's way too much transparency. And of course, but that is, that's where we're moving toward. If you can't see that, then phew, I don't know what rock you're living under. But the fact is that, yeah. But I honestly don't think he's going to say it, because I think that's a statement that's even beyond too far for him to even go, believe it or not. But
I
doesn't
believe
mean
it.
well, yeah. But let's face it, you don't have to say it, but you could still do it. You can still move in that direction and make it happen. You don't have to announce it. You could just, put all the mechanisms in place to make that a reality, to make that the new world order reality. And that would be a shame. That would truly be a shame, because there's going to be a lot of places that are going to be outside those spheres of influence, who are going to be resistant to it. Where does the EU fall into that? Where does South America fall into that? Where does Australia fall into that? These nations that are going to be Japan. I mean, there's so many different countries out there that probably would not automatically fall under the sphere of influence of these four nations. Okay, where do they go, and what does that mean to the world order? And that's an interesting question. But the thing in Gaza, you would have thought it'd been over by now.
But, okay, so just bear with
you
me.
really would have, Scott.
One more concept, okay?
Okay, one more concept. Give it to me.
Trump has said that he wants peace, and people around him say, "Look, this guy really does truly abhor the killing that's going on." But I don't think he cares who wins, and his solutions so far, really going back to the first administration. And if you wanted to go back further than that, some of the public statements that he's made when he was a private citizen suggest that it's worth surrendering, essentially, to make peace, and that Ukraine has to understand that Ukraine is part of the Russian Empire, and they need to lay down their arms and stop this killing, and just accept that this is the way things are. And he doesn't understand, Trump doesn't understand why Zelensky is fighting back. And he doesn't understand why Japan is not just accepting the fact that they need to stay in their lane and let China be China. And I mean, as far as like the EU and Brazil and all these, we're not having these alliances anymore. They're nothing but trading partners, and they don't need to worry about security anymore, because nobody is interested in doing anything that's outside their sphere of influence. Just let us do what we want to do, and you won't get hurt. And it's the mob mentality. You got a nice country there. I'd hate to see something happen to it, that Trump has operated on since he became in power. We're going to return the Cubans to Cuba. Since John F. Kennedy was president, Cubans got asylum in the United States as political prisoners. Now they don't anymore. And they didn't go after the guy who cut the dude's head off the other day, right? Instead, they wanted to send him back to Cuba. And Cuba refused, of course. We don't have a treaty with them. We don't fly from the United States into Cuba. So that means a third party has to get involved. That's a lot of work for a guy like Trump, who doesn't want to make diplomatic relations. He'd rather just either send the guy to Africa somewhere or El Salvador. But really what he wants is Cuba needs to understand that they're a tiny little country that we can wipe out if we want to. And Mexico, even better, right? Massing troops on the border, continually talking about the fact that if the cartels don't stop, the U.S. military is going to go into Mexico. Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, says, do not do that. And Trump is like, hey, at the UN, he'll say, look, Mexico, here's the thing. We've been patient with you for, I don't know how many years, but drugs keep coming across our border. We're not being patient anymore. Your country is our country. We are your lords and masters, and we're going to do what we want to do for us. And, if you don't like it, do something about it. Yeah. I don't look, we'll know next week what Trump says at the UN, whether he tells the truth, because I do believe that what I'm saying is what he truly believes.
Oh, I agree. He believes it. Oh, I totally agree. I just don't know if he'd say it.
Yeah.
I think if we had a President Vance, he might very well say it. That to me is I don't know if Trump will say it. I do agree that he believes it. I think Vance, I was thinking as you were speaking, Scott, about how Vance was addressing the Europeans, how Vance was addressing Europeans, for example, and criticizing them and whatnot, and telling them how they should be treating Russia and what they should be doing and so on. And it seems to me that Vance might very well be the one who would say something like that openly. What are the chances, do you think, of the United States remaining a whole country after with changes like this? I mean, do you see the United States like dividing itself into, I don't know, 3 regions, 4 regions, something like this?
That's that's a good question, probably for another topic, I would say. So let's keep that question, because that's a good question. We can address that at some other time. Absolutely.
I don't know how that would work.
Because we're gonna wrap this one up, because I've got a financial thing for Scott that just flashed across my screen. He's going to address it.
Right.
Okay.
So that's going to be our next topic, the financial one for Scott.
Yep.
All righty. So thank you, everyone, for spending some time with us on the Nova Society. We appreciate you, our listeners, and we will be getting to your questions in future episodes next week. If you're not yet subscribed on the platform of your choice, please do so. Subscribing is free, and we'll see you again next time on the Nova Society.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. The JCIS is a publication of NovaWorks, a scholarly depository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description.